That, says Theresa May, is the only choice, at the start of a political drama the likes of which we've never seen. In Act 1, she must convince 27 other EU leaders to accept that Britain can alter the rules of the European club, even as we head for the exit. In Act 2, she must persuade her deeply divided party and Parliament to back her deal. If she fails, what happens in Act 3 is anyone's guess. She might fall, a general election could be triggered, or even another referendum. Or Britain might simply fall over that cliff edge, which has been talked of for so long, leaving the EU with no deal at all. The action begins in 3 days' time, when the EU gathers in Salzburg for a special summit. I've been speaking to the Prime Minister. I spoke to her at Chequers, her country retreat, now also the name of her Brexit plan, a plan which holds the key to her fate and a lot more besides.
What I'm doing as Prime Minister, what we're doing as a government, and what we did here at Chequers in putting the plan together, is put a plan together that delivers on the vote that people took. That means that we'll bring an end to free movement, so we will decide who can come into this country. It means we'll stop sending vast sums of money to the European Union every year so we can spend more money on our NHS. It means that we'll be no longer under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. Parliament will make our laws. So it's giving people back control here in the UK. But what Chequers also did was actually a plan that makes sure we protect jobs, protect people's livelihoods, and that we were able to make the best of the opportunities outside the EU.
Now, you were moving, compared with proposals you'd made in the past, because presumably the EU wouldn't accept them. And some of the Cabinet thought you'd gone too far. The Brexit Secretary said later that you had blinked. The Foreign Secretary said later that you were waving the white flag.
Perhaps it would be helpful if I explain why we came to put forward the Chequers plan. The European Union had basically put two offers on the table. Either the UK stays in the single market and the customs union, effectively in the EU, that would have betrayed the vote of the British people. Or on the other side, you have a basic sort of free trade agreement, but carving Northern Ireland out and effectively keeping Northern Ireland in the European Union and Great Britain out. And that would have broken up the United Kingdom, or could have broken up the United Kingdom. Both of those were unacceptable to the UK, unacceptable to me, unacceptable to the government, and I think unacceptable to the British public. And that's why we had to stand up to the EU and say, no, we won't accept what you've put forward. We're going to put our own proposal forward. And that's what Chequers was about.
But it was a slightly different plan from the one you'd originally proposed. And David Davis said you blinked in the face of EU intransigence. Boris Johnson said you'd waved the white flag. Are they wrong to say you budged because the EU wouldn't give you what you wanted?
As I just said, the EU put two proposals on the table. Neither of those proposals was acceptable to the United Kingdom. That's why it was important for us to say this is our plan.
No,
but yes, it has unblocked.
But it was a different plan. It was a different plan. You're saying, is it, that it was necessary to unblock what the EU were saying in the negotiations? So not blinking, not waving the white flag, unblocking the negotiations.
It unblocked the negotiations, and crucially it has done that. But it was a plan that I believe is absolutely right for the United Kingdom.
Why have you allowed Ireland to so dominate these Brexit negotiations?
Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. It is right that as the government of the UK, we are looking at the interests of the people of Northern Ireland, just as we're looking at the interests of people in Scotland, England and Wales. And that's what we've been doing with putting this plan together.
But people say you've allowed the EU to use this worry about a hard border to effectively force Britain to take the softest possible Brexit. And they say you've fallen for it.
No, what we've done is listen to the people of Northern Ireland. I've been over to Northern Ireland. I've been close to the border. I've talked to people whose livelihoods depend, businesses, farmers, people whose day-to-day life is about crossing this border. It matters to them that they're able to carry on leading their life in the way that they do today.
Boris Johnson says this plan that you've agreed to on Ireland, it's a suicide belt around the British Constitution.
Well, first of all, I have to say I think that choice of language was completely inappropriate. I've been Home Secretary, was Home Secretary for 6 years and as Prime Minister for 2 years now. Using language like that was not right, and it's not language I would have used, but let's look at the argument in relation to Northern Ireland. The people of Northern Ireland deserve to be listened to. I want to ensure that as we go forward, we have that strong union, that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and it's important that we deliver for the people of Northern Ireland. They don't want a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. The only proposal that's been put forward that delivers on them not having that hard border and ensures that we don't carve up the United Kingdom is the Chequers plan.
The only proposal. So these other plans that we saw this week, they don't do it.
No, because what many of these other plans are based on is moving the border. You don't solve the issue of no hard border by having a hard border 20 kilometres inside Northern Ireland or 20 kilometres inside Ireland. Still a hard border.
You say no return to freedom of movement. You haven't told us your immigration policy. If the EU asks for a preferential deal for their citizens, easier to travel than it is for people from Australia or America or India, will you agree to that?
We're going to be putting our immigration proposals forward later this autumn and showing people the plans that we have.
But you rule out giving a special deal to EU citizens?
We'll put our proposals forward when we put them forward. But I'm very clear.
You don't think it's a principle, in other words, that they must be treated the same, the EU and the rest of the world?
As we look at this, what I'm very clear about is the message from the British people was very simple. It was they didn't want a situation where they could see people coming from the European Union having those automatic rights in terms of coming here to the United Kingdom and a set of rules for people from outside the European Union. What we will be doing is putting forward a set of rules for people from the European Union and people from outside the European Union.
The next challenge for you, if you get a deal, will be to get support for that deal in Parliament. Is this the political battle of your lifetime?
This will be a vote that will be delivering on the referendum result. The result of that referendum was a very important historic moment for the UK. Coming out of the European Union, becoming that truly independent sovereign state, will be an important moment for the UK.
And if Parliament votes no, if they reject your deal?
When we come to it, I think Parliament will vote for a deal because I think people will see the importance of a deal that maintains a good trading relationship with the EU, but also maintains good cooperation in other areas, but gives us the freedom to take the benefits and opportunities of Brexit. But also, I think the question in people's minds will be, are we delivering on the vote of the British people? Are we ensuring that we leave the European Union?
Or what, if they reject your proposals, if it becomes a deal in the EU, or what if they say no?
Do we really think that if the European Union, we've been through this negotiation, we get to the point where we've agreed a deal, that if Parliament was to say no, go back and get a better one, do you really think the European Union is going to give a better deal at that point?
I want to be clear whether you are saying, I think you are, my deal or no deal.
I believe we'll get a good deal. We'll bring that back from the EU negotiations and put that to Parliament. I think that the alternative to that will be not having a deal, because I don't think the negotiations would have that deal, and B, we're leaving on the 29th of March 2019.
But Boris Johnson says, you heard him, he was your Foreign Secretary after all, he was in this building when the plan was delivered. He says you've settled for 2/3 of diddly squat. He says you've waved the white flag to the EU. And he says, and he tells the world, in effect, I'd get a much better deal.
Boris was here, of course, at Chequers and was part of the cabinet that agreed this plan and putting this plan forward, and then obviously took his decision thereafter. What this plan delivers is an end to free movement. It delivers an end to the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. It delivers an end to sending vast amounts of money to the European Union each year, so we can spend that money on our priorities like the National Health Service. It delivers on also ensuring that we can negotiate good free trade deals around the rest of the world. But it does it in a way that does protect jobs and livelihoods in the UK and also protects the precious union of the United Kingdom.
What's wrong with the plan that your critics propose for Brexit?
The plans that I've seen at the moment are ones that don't deliver on the Northern Ireland border, don't deliver on a seamless border with the rest of the European Union. If you're one of those small businesses, over 100,000 small businesses in the UK that only trades with the European Union, if you're one of those businesses, your business will change. You will have extra burdens. I don't want those businesses to have those extra burdens. I don't want manufacturers to feel that they've got to operate under all sorts of different rules, because that complicates life for them, and that potentially means business leaving this country.
You and your cabinet have just sat for 3.5 hours contemplating the possibility of no deal, that the negotiations do not succeed. I wonder how you felt when you heard the Governor of the Bank of England say that house prices might drop by a third.
Well, when the Cabinet met, we were doing what I think is an important part of the government's job in these negotiations, which is to say, we're working for a good deal. I believe we can get a good deal. But actually, we're still not at the end of the negotiations, so we need to prepare for all eventualities. All the forecasts that are out there that look at no deal or look at other aspects, they're not a prediction. What's important is how the government responds. Under no deal, there would be some short-term disruption. It's our job as a government to make sure that we make a success of no deal, just as we make a success of getting a good deal.
Can you complete the following sentence? Brexit is a good idea because?
It gives the United Kingdom opportunities as an independent and sovereign state to build a better future for all our people.
You believe in it?
I believe that our best days are ahead of us.
Prime Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.